The U.S. is seeking to deepen ties with the Maldives as it moves closer to China. Well, Secretary of State Antony Blinken has welcomed his counterpart to Washington, hailing the Indian Ocean island state as an important partner.
We stand together in working to make sure that we have a free and open Indo-Pacific region. We stand together in dealing with the challenge posed by climate change, a challenge to lives and livelihoods that we both take very seriously and where the Maldives is a leader.
Well, the visit comes 2 months after the party of President Mohamed Muizzu won a landslide in parliamentary elections. Mr. Muizzu has pivoted ties towards China and away from India, which is a key U.S. partner in standing up to Beijing in the Indo-Pacific. The Maldives has asked Delhi to replace its troops stationed in the country with civilians. It also allowed a Chinese research vessel to dock at its port, raising concerns in India. And for more on this, we are joined now by our correspondent, Afifa Arfin, in Kuala Lumpur. And she has been working hard on a series of stories on the Maldives. So, Afifa, I've got to ask you here, what are some of the main reasons behind the Maldivian foreign minister's trip to Washington?
Well, Maldives officials say this visit stems from an invitation extended by the United States when the current Maldivian government under President Mohamed Muizzu came into power last year. But what observers are saying is that it seems the United States is hoping to engage more directly with the Maldives as a strategic move in the region. Now, this also comes at a time when the Maldives itself is seeking to rebalance its geopolitical position. Now, it's a strategic archipelago in the Indian Ocean, and the Maldives has long found itself at the crossroads of intense geopolitical rivalry between China and India, and by extension, the United States. And so these superpowers vie for influence in this critical maritime region, each of them leveraging economic, military, as well as diplomatic means to assert their dominance. And it seems that now Maldives is strengthening ties with the U.S. and its allies. So on this trip by the Foreign Minister Musa Zamir to Washington, both sides had expressed their commitment to regional stability, maritime security, while upholding a rules-based international order. And the U.S. has also said it will donate 8 patrol boats to the Maldives, and also planned provisions of $2 million in hydrographic support to help mitigate rising sea levels in the country. Now, the U.S. and India, as we know, are members of the Quad, this U.S.-led security bloc with Japan and Australia. And this group is aimed at what President Joe Biden's administration called maintaining peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific. And Washington had always called the Maldives a valuable partner and an integral part of a free and open Indo-Pacific region, noting that this country is adjacent to one of the busiest trade routes in the world.
Now, FIFA, we can see these major powers, they're jostling for influence, they're trying hard to woo the tiny island state. But what about the Maldivians themselves? What do they make of it?
Well, generally, people in Maldives are not too concerned with that level of geopolitics or that tussle between the major powers. Their concerns largely surround, the fishing and tourism industries, which are the economic pillars of the country. But over the last couple of months, these issues have somewhat come to the fore, especially during election season, during the presidential election and the parliamentary election in April. And this is because the politicians have used this as a platform to highlight their foreign policy position. We know President Muizzu had presented a very strong India Out campaign, and that seemed to somewhat resonate with the voters, who then gave him and his party a supermajority in parliament. Now, when I was in Male, you can see the landmarks which show the contrasting influence of these two major powers. So on one end, you can clearly see China's main investments, the Sinamale Bridge, or what's also known as the China-Maldives Friendship Bridge, which was opened in 2018. That's a very important connector in the Maldivian capital. It's the first intercity bridge. It connects Male with Hulu Male and another island where the international airport is. But on the other end, what we can see is that construction is underway for yet another road project, which will connect Male to 3 very important tourist islands nearby. And this is a project that's funded by India. So observers have also said that, over the last 20 years, the Maldives had often change their support, leaning either to China or India, depending on who's in power. From 2013 to 2018, the country leaned towards China, joining the Belt and Road Initiative and brought in many Chinese investments. But under a new administration from 2018 to 2023, the country pivoted back to India, accepting hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure projects. Now, I spoke with the former foreign minister of Maldives, who said that the Maldives foreign policy had always changed, but as a small nation, the key is to build these ties while maintaining its own interests. So we'll have more about that next week.
Looking forward to that. Thanks so very much, Shafifa Arifin, speaking to us from Kuala Lumpur.